Hey everybody, so hope you're having a good Wednesday. I am home at last from work, so I'm about to start dinner and I just figured I would take you guys along. I was trying to think of something I could do on Instagram that I could share with you guys. I'm not really going to go Christmas shopping this year. I'm not going to go to the park and take you outside, although it is a beautiful day. But I figured I'd make a dish that is pretty easy to make. My boyfriend's mom makes this for him, and I don't think it's exactly like hers, but since she's not here to guide me through it, I just go by memory of what I was told to do. So let's take a look and see what we got here. So I'm making a dish called Chile de Longaniza. Longaniza is like a chorizo. It's a different kind of chorizo though. The meat inside tastes different. The longaniza, you can get it at any Latin market, usually the meat counter. Some, if not almost all of them, are not going to have it in the meat counter. There's very few that I found, but you can buy it actually in like the meat case where they have the chorizo at, like the breakfast chorizo. So if you see it there, get it. You'll notice there's a difference to it. It's a bit spicier. So I'm going to show you the ingredients and how to do this. So for this dish, you're going to need longaniza. I chopped it up into just some slices. It still does have its casing on it though, so that way it holds itself together in the pan as you're frying it. You need some cloves of garlic, some tomatoes, Romas are fine. Also, you'll need some serrano peppers. It's very simple. All you have to do is just take the tomatoes and the serrano pepper and put it into a boiling pot of water. You do want to be safe when handling boiling water because if you drop the tomatoes in there, they are going to splash and you don't want to burn yourself. So I have some tomatoes here. It's a bit imperfect produce, but you know, it's going to do its job. They're a little overripe. That's what happens when you get them at the grocery store in the hood. They're not the best produce, see that? But it's not rotten, so that's a good thing. I'm going to put those in the water. I didn't add any salt or anything. It's just going to be straight boiling water. So serrano peppers. And I'm just going to go ahead and cover it for a minute there and let it soak in the boiling water for about probably 10 to 12 minutes. And you'll know when it's ready because the tomatoes themselves will start to come apart. It'll peel apart. So while that's boiling, you're going to want to go ahead and get the garlic chopped up. I am going to use a food processor because I don't like to chop things if I don't have to. When we're done boiling all of these vegetables here, they will go into a blender. So you're probably thinking, why don't you just put them in the blender and blend up the garlic? Well, it doesn't really do that good of a job for me. So what I'm going to do is put them into a food processor and get that taken care of. So I have my little, if it'll turn around, so I have my little KitchenAid mixer, or food processor rather, here at home. I'm just going to drop my cloves of garlic in there. I'm going to put the lid back on. And what's great about these things here is that you can chop it. So if you don't have one, they're actually pretty cool to use. Just a couple of taps. Or you can do that if you want. But now it's all diced up. So all I have to do now is just scrape that into the blender. And when my vegetables are ready to be blended, they'll go right in. Okay, so while the tomatoes are still boiling with the serrano pepper, I'm going to go ahead and preheat my pan to about a medium temperature. It's been going here for about 5 minutes or so it's nice and hot. Now I do want to let you know that I didn't add any oil or anything because this longaniza does have a lot of fat, so it's gonna fry in its own stuff. So I almost said shit. Now I know it doesn't look like a whole lot, but the reason why I don't have as much is because it's just me. I mean, you can actually go and get about 2 to 3 pounds of this stuff at the meat counter if you can find it, or about 2 or 3 packages of this, and make a whole lot more. But I tend to have too many leftovers, and honestly, I'm not a leftovers kind of person. So I'm just going to go ahead and actually just kind of toast it up. You don't really want it to fall apart like the regular breakfast chorizo that you would find that crumbles up into that big greasy mess. Because the point of this is not to have a big greasy chorizo mess. What we want is chunks of the longaniza. And when we actually are done boiling that, see, they're almost done, they're splitting. When we actually go ahead and add the sauce to this, we're going to have like a gravy with the chunks of sausage. So it's going to actually be pretty sweet. I'm going to go ahead and continue frying this up for a second and then let this render down a little bit. And then I'm going to take out my vegetables here in just a moment. So while that's actually frying up here, I'm going to go ahead and cover it. And I'm going to turn this down to probably like close to low. Because I don't want it to burn, but I also don't want it to cook too much because I do need to get and pay attention to this. This is about ready. The tomato there has completely this one has completely taken all of his clothes off. These three here are about ready to be peeled really quick, and so I'll go ahead and do that and add them to the blender. And just so you know, if you've never boiled tomatoes before, once they're done, the skin actually just falls off of the tomato. I don't have to touch it with my fingers. If you've got strong fingers that have very little sensation in them, then by all means try and peel them, but I just had to pick up the tomato and the skin all just came off. So from what I'm going to do here is drop it in. I've already added the minced garlic from the food processor here just a few minutes ago. So I'm going to drop these in to the blender. I do have one more in here I forgot to get out. Whoops. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and see this. The skin just completely comes off. That's what you want, because you don't want to touch it and burn yourself. Because above all, we want to practice safety, right? Because if you're hurt, you're no good to anyone, especially yourself. So it's really hard to do this one-handed. I don't have a TV crew like the YouTube people do. And I know they do because I've seen people standing in reflections of stovetops and ovens and things. So I'm not totally professional. But anyway, if you're worried about the peppers being too hot, just know that when they boil, they actually get like weaker, in my opinion. So when you see something that's boiled, it's actually not as hot as if it would be completely raw. I take the tops off of the chiles. I don't want those in the blender. So I'm going to add those in there, and I'm going to go ahead and put my lid on there. You're probably wondering how much salt to put. Well, I really don't have measurements. I don't operate in teaspoons and whatever. So what you'll want to do is just to taste. Usually, I mean, put what you think. If you like things salty, add more. If you don't like things salty, then just add. You don't have to actually make and cook it. It's actually already pre-cooked. A pinch. But when people say just a little bit of salt, usually it's probably about a teaspoon or so. You don't want things that are too salty. By the way, I do want to show you the chorizo, how it's supposed to look while it's cooked. Because it's already cooked. That's the beauty of it. So it's already pre-cooked, but what's great about it is that you can see it's still little like meatballs here. And it's actually still on a very low heat. So it's still sort of cooking, but it's really not. But what I'm going to do is actually going to go ahead and blend this salsa up, if you will. So what I'm going to do is just liquefy it, and it's going to get loud here for just a second. So I'm going to go ahead and pass on that. One moment. Okay, so you're probably wondering, why didn't Jesse add water to that? Well, let me tell you why. Because when you add water to this, it gets really watery in the chorizo. So with that being said, I'm not going to go ahead and add that with a bunch of water, just because it's a bit too liquidy in my taste. And honestly, like, if you're going to do that, it's going to be harder to eat with your taco. And I know that sounds kind of stupid, but it's really kind of true. Okay, so I have went ahead and I took the chorizo out, or the longaniza, out of the pan, and I went ahead and drained the fat out of that. I didn't take it completely out because, honestly, you do want some in there. I mean, that's part of the beautiful thing about chorizo / longaniza, or just Mexican meats in general. They're pretty greasy. So I went ahead and drained that, and I put the chorizo here in the, I'm going to call it chorizo. You know why? Because longaniza doesn't roll off the tongue as easy. So I'm going to add this back to the pan. And we're going to go ahead and add our salsa here in just a second. Yummy. All that fat. So I'm going to go ahead and add my mixture to that. And to be honest, it's probably going to need just a little bit more salt. I did taste the sauce, and it was a bit weak in my opinion, so I'm going to go ahead and add some salt to that, just a little bit. I mean, a little bit more. And with that being done, I'm going to add a little bit of cumin. Now, if you don't know about cumin, I mean, everybody should know about cumin. That's one of those staples that we all, need in cooking. Cumin's actually, I think, an Indian spice, but it smells like body odor, so don't put too much. I literally just sprinkled like fairy dust on there because I don't want that overpowering my dish. This is a very simple dish. We're going to treat it as such because it deserves to be treated with respect, since it is a traditional kind of dish. Okay, so it passed the taste test, and I'm going to go ahead and raise the temperature up to about, I'd say, medium again, and I'm going to go ahead and let that come to a boil and then cover it. And I'm going to turn it right back down to low right before you turn it off. You want it to just simmer. So let it simmer for about 30 minutes, and then you come back to it, and it should be like a gravy. And it'll also be a little bit darker too. Your place is going to smell amazing, just so you know. But it is a bit overpowering if you do use the longaniza. So I would just suggest, if you're going to do this, you probably want to open a window or something, because it's going to start to smell really overpowering, and it can last for a couple of days. Just saying. It's a great smell, but when you have, your clothes smelling like longaniza, garlic, and all that other fun stuff, then it's not so cute. So like I said, I raised it to about a medium. So for me, it's about a 5, 6, something like that. So it's getting kind of angry. We're going to let that get a little bit angrier once it starts to boil a little bit more. And then I'm going to go ahead and cover it. And from there, it's actually going to sit there for 30 minutes. And I will be back while I clean up this mess, because I cannot operate in a dirty kitchen. Not that this is dirty, but I don't want to have all this crap while I'm trying to keep cooking. So I will be back. I'm going to cover this, turn it down to low, and then I'll be back. Okay, so the food is ready, and it smells really good in here. I didn't open up the window because it honestly wasn't as strong today, which is really bizarre. But anyway, the food is ready, and I was going to let you see the final product here. Remember, we're always practicing safety first. So if you're not used to cooking anything, everyone knows this, but if you don't know, whenever you lift something that's been steaming, you always want to lift the lid away from you. See that? Because you don't want all that steam, if you open it this way, blowing up in your face. Just remember that. So I'm going to put this over here, and we're going to look at it. Remember I told you it was going to be a little bit more red? I'm going to get... Actually, you know what? I'm going to use a silicone spoon. So this is the final product. You see it's in a bit of a gravy. It's going to be a little spicy because I put 2 serrano peppers, but you can put just 1, or even you can use a jalapeno, which, believe it or not, is more mild than a serrano pepper. So I'm going to go ahead and plate this up, make some tortillas because I have the comal going here, and I got a pot of beans here that I've went ahead and mashed up, and they're ready to go too. So I'm going to plate it, and then you guys can see the final product. I'm going to let it sit on the stove without the lid for about maybe 3 minutes. While I'm doing that, I'm going to heat my tortillas up and then get the plate together. One last thing I did want to say is I went ahead and took the lid off of it, and you're going to let some of the steam evaporate. And when you're doing that, you're actually going to let it thicken up a little bit. You don't want it to be so runny on your plate. Although it is good, it's just better when it's a little more solidified. Okay, so here's the final product. It is cooked. It's been reduced into that sauce, and let me tell you that it is so divine. Yes, the beans look really good, and they are. Before you ask me, how did you prepare those beans? They were actually prepared in a factory, and all I did was I took them and I mashed them and added some cheese, and that's how I ended up with them. So I'm going to enjoy these suckers with flour tortilla. And I've got a few more in there just in case. Yes, that is a big black spot, but it bubbled up, but whatever. Tortillas are fickle. But anyway, this was my meal, and I hope that you guys enjoyed the little tutorial on how to make this really easy dish. It is super, simple. And yes, the longaniza is not that healthy, but free from a bunch of different stuff. So as you can see, is I actually only added salt and just a little bit of cumin. I didn't add anything else into that. There's just garlic. Just to recap, there's garlic, and I added some tomatoes, serrano peppers, a little bit of salt, and a little bit of cumin, and that's all it is. The most unhealthy thing I think is going to be probably those corn tortillas or flour tortillas, because they're not corn. They should be corn because corn is healthier for you. But since they're not corn, they're flour, and they're going to be amazing. So you guys, I hope you had a good time watching this, and I am out. Bye.